Okay, I don't know if this is going to attach on to that one. It seems like when I explained the last part of that, I even went to the teacher key and it's still not clear what they were looking for on that. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this one out and show you how this describes sort of what we've learned. So I'm going to try to do it quickly. Once again, pause when you need to. Okay, right here we started our section on geology, studying about minerals. And remember, they were the building blocks of rocks. And that's what we studied in chapter 3. And rocks are classified by their origin, and I'm going to keep it, or how they form. Okay, do you remember the 3 types of rocks? The first one that we learned about was igneous rocks. And every time I see this, people just seem to start learning about igneous rocks. So remember when we talked about it forms magma, which is almost kind of like, I think, the start of the rock cycle. And then we have sedimentary is listed second. So remember, it makes kind of sense because we need that rocks and pebbles and sand, which might come from the igneous rocks. And then finally, the last one is metamorphic. And we need a rock before we can change it. So that one normally comes last. Let's think about where igneous comes from or how it's formed. Boom, there goes my cap. And it is formed from magma or lava cooling. Sedimentary rock is formed when sediment is deposited by wind or water. And do you remember the P and the H here is just when a rock is changed by heat and or pressure. Okay, let's see what you can remember. What were the 2 types of igneous rocks? How they form should be a clue. There was extrusive. Ask yourself, is extrusive outside? Think of the word exit. And then the opposite is intrusive. See if you can write ahead of me. Extrusive means that it was formed outside. It was outside, on top of the earth. So that was what we say is formed from lava. And you could keep going, which means that it cools fast. You can keep going, which means that it has fine crystals. Remember when we learned all of those were in our notes. And one of the most common extrusive is basalt. So think about what intrusive means. That means it was formed under the Earth's surface or in the Earth, which means that it came from cooling magma, which means it took a long time or it cools slowly, which means it has very coarse crystals. Let's think, what was the common one that we highlighted? That was granite. So basalt and granite or igneous rocks. What was that other cool one we saw? That was obsidian. Obsidian. I might have spelled that wrong. That was that black shiny glass one. I did. Obsidian. I don't think this is an I here. Okay, so sedimentary rocks. Now this is something you're going to need to know. That process what does that mean? The WEDCC. We need to weather and erode. So weather and erode. We need to break it up and then we need to carry it somewhere. Think about the road. Then we have to deposit it down somewhere. And then we have to compact it. Remember we pushed the bread together? and then finally cement, which is glued it together. And there's just 3 different types of sedimentary rock, and there's clastic rock, and there's organic rock, and there is chemical rock. Remember, we learned limestone can be either of those. We learned coal is organic. It comes from swamp plants. Think of that conglomerate. Remember, we passed it around. It had round, chunky ones, conglomerate. We had sandstone. And breccia was the one that we talked about earlier. And then finally, metamorphic rock is broken into 2 categories, and that's foliated, meaning it has folds, which means you can see the layers. And then we have the non-foliated that was in your book, and that means it is so random. And what were the examples there? The foliated was the nice one. The non-foliated was the quartzite that came from sandstone. So I don't know, maybe this will help you kind of summarize all this big long chapter 3. And I don't know what happened. The other one cut out when I looked. I'm going to go ahead and try to say what I said there. I went even into the teacher's manual, and it just tells me to see the rubric, and all the rubric tells me is, did you answer it with 2 different ways? It doesn't really tell me what they were looking for. And I know that metamorphic rock can change into sedimentary rock through weathering and erosion. It's got to happen that way. There's only one arrow here. You go back to the rock cycles section, and I actually went back, when I paused it, I went back to the, I'll just use your book. I went back to the metamorphic rock section, and I went back to the sedimentary rock section and reread everything. So I kind of like this, though. I like when we hit an issue, when we don't give up, we kind of go back and look. So I'm going to go back, and I went back to metamorphic rock. Here's the rock cycle, and here's metamorphic rock. And how many arrows go from metamorphic rock back up to the sedimentary rock? It doesn't go back here. The only way is weathering and eroding. So I don't know whether those are counted as separate or they wanted a specific kind, but for the purposes of 6th grade, I think we covered the bases there. I'm going to keep looking, and if I find, oh, this is what they wanted, it wasn't kind of clear, they need to ask a better question. Okay, you guys, enjoy your Wednesday. Tomorrow is your quiz, and I hope you have a great week.